Hey guys, just watched a fantastic comedy, social commentary comedy with sort of a meta fourth wall, not really, but where the movie itself is somehow part of the movie. I don't know how to describe it. The movie that the guy in the movie wants to make is the movie that you're watching. Very exciting. Anyway, this is Sullivan's Travels, starring Joel McCrea, Veronica Lake, made by Preston Sturges, and also starring the Sturges players, I believe they're called. These are some fantastic actors, secondary actors that you see in Preston Sturges films. Preston Sturges has made films like All Hail the Conquering Hero, probably famously The Lady Eve. The Lady Eve is filled in the same way with this fast dialogue, just like Sullivan's Travels. But what I love about Sullivan's Travels is it is a movie about a director who's sick of making fluff comedies. He's responsible for making such fluff as Hey Hey in the Haystack is one. Another one, Ants in Your Pants of 1939. Um, so he's made these famous fictional, really successful films, but in his mind they're light fluff, say nothing, and are mindless, and he's really sick of making these. And this is the director Preston Sturges's comment, sort of meta comment, who is using this film, is he's trying to say to other directors of the era, comedy directors. He even mentions Frank Capra by name in the film. So directors, I guess, like Capra, who are famous for comedies, who around the late 30s, early 40s, looked around the world and went, wow, there's a lot of strife at home and abroad, and we got to make more serious films. Preston Sturges looked at this phenomenon and went, no, you're here to make comedies. Do what you do best. Leave the social commentary to those who are good at social commentary. It's not the purview of Hollywood, especially comedic Hollywood directors. So the film follows Joel McCrea, who is Joe Sullivan. So he's John Sullivan, sorry, he's the main character. And he is this director who's got this big entourage, around him. He lives in this fantastic house. He's got a butler and maid and drivers and cooks and secretaries, and decides that he's going to make this picture of the common man, this poignant film. The script is called "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou," which is a connection to the Coen brothers. Basically, pay homage to this movie by making this very film, this fictional script that shows up first in this movie, Sullivan's Travels. So John Sullivan decides he's going to go on the road as a tramp or a hobo or whatever you want to call it back then. Sort of I guess, I don't know what you'd call these people today. These weren't your typical homeless people of today. These were generally men out of work, looking for work, traveling the rails, living rough, sleeping, wherever. And there was, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of these men in the United States in the late 30s, early 40s. So that's the internal strife and homelessness and poverty and joblessness. Of course, you got what's going on in Europe at the time, so you have all this strife overseas. And in order to really understand this, he's got to go undercover as a tramp. And so he embarks on this. And, hilariously, he meets Veronica Lake, who is a down and out wannabe actress. She's leaving Hollywood. She's sick of it. She's going back home. And she just happens to meet him as he's also heading off on this journey. Hilariously, they consistently come back to Hollywood. So, he gets on freight trains or hitches a ride on the back of a truck and ends up back in Hollywood all the time, right? So he's trying to escape this life, this privileged life, so he can experience what it's like to live rough, to make this movie, but his privileged life keeps interfering. At one point, his whole entourage, of these hilarious actors, the Preston players, who are delivering this just hilarious, quick-witted dialogue constantly, where basically, the Preston Sturges films, what's so great about them, you really have to listen to all these lines. Sometimes there's a line that'll be, that's easily missed that will be poignant and hilarious. And so at one point, these guys are following him in what's called a land yacht, which is basically a giant motorhome, and so he's driving around trying to live rough. He's got this land yacht following him. At one point, they actually succeed, him and Veronica Lake. And Veronica Lake is perfect also as sort of a satirical character, because if you were to pick an actress back then who was gonna, play somebody living rough, you probably wouldn't pick Veronica Lake. Veronica Lake is like the embodiment of glamour. To me, when I look at somebody like a caricature like Jessica Rabbit, who, Roger Rabbit's wife, cartoon wife, who is drawn, as she says, drawn bad, but she's sort of this conglomerate of sort of, you know, over the top Hollywood actresses back in the 30s and 40s. To me, she's Veronica Lake and Linda Darnell, and a few others rolled in, but definitely she's Veronica Lake. So you take this over the top sultry actress and you put her in these situations, and they put her in this like this cap and this like sort of workman's outfit. She looks like a child. She looks hilarious. Never really pass as somebody living rough. So at one point they do end up living rough for a while. He gets his shoes stolen, and he does go through some little bit of hardship, right? And then comes back, and now it's a success. He wants to make this film, but this is where the film takes its twist. Something happens to him, which basically puts him into this real world situation without his privilege, right? So, he gets assaulted. He loses his, he doesn't have any identification. He ends up assaulting somebody, ends up on a chain gang, and nobody believes that he's this famous director, right? But then, he gets rescued through this is newspaper. He confesses to murdering himself. That's what happens. And so this is how he gets, the newspapers find him and turns out, oh, it's actually him. And so he goes back to make this film, but on his journey, in the real hardship journey that he goes on, he learns the most valuable lesson of the film, which is, in fact, the downtrodden people that you want to make this movie for. Oh, brother, where art thou? This poignant film about the struggles of humanity. The people that you want to make it for, they don't want to see this movie, right? The working class guys that he's been traveling with, the poor people, they, at one point, he finds himself in this poor black church with the other chain gang workers watching a really silly Disney cartoon with Pluto being really silly. And everyone around him is just laughing it up. And these people have pretty bad lives. He's going through hell. Even he starts laughing. And it teaches him that what these people really want, what these people really need, what this world really needs is laughter, is an escape. And the movies are meant to be an escape. And for me, this is sort of a personal message of the film, because, as you deal with people who don't like old movies, one of the things that they complain about is that they're not realistic, that the acting is over the top, the dialogue is over the top. Preston Sturges, the dialogue is definitely over the top. The stories, everything is just unbelievable, fantastic, and not realistic. All true. But that wasn't a bug of those films. That was a feature. That's what they wanted. They didn't want to go see some realistic film. Their lives were pretty crap. They generally worked crappy jobs, or were jobless, just had pretty bleak existences. And when they went to the theater and spent their dime on a triple feature, they didn't want Schindler's List, right? What they wanted was, some silly cartoon short that made them laugh, maybe a gangster movie with a simple moral plot, a cowboy movie with the same thing, and then a Preston Sturges comedy, to have them laughing in their seats. They wanted to escape. And it's only in the 60s and 70s that we get into realism. You could make the case, as our lives improve, most of us don't live in the crappy apartments that are shown in these movies from the 30s and 40s. Most of our lives are, if you watch how the average people live, are way better. Are way better than the lives of those people. Just in the basics of our lives and nutrition and healthcare and education and everything's better. And so now our fantasy and escape is watching the downtrodden, is watching, a Mexican prison drama or a gangster, a narco gangster drama, because that's not our real lives. That's our escape. Back then, their lives were much more bleak and hopeless. And there was a lot of stuff going on in the world that could make you feel hopeless. So when you went to the movies, you wanted an escape. You wanted you wanted to see beautiful people who did not look realistic, like Veronica Lake in her getup, right? And you wanted to have a good laugh. And this picture gives you all of that. It gives you the poignant story. It gives you the message, but it wraps it up in a completely different way than you might be expecting, makes you laugh, gives you a message. You don't feel guilty for laughing. It's the picture itself is sort of a meta commentary on the picture he's trying to make, or maybe the other way around, and then you've got the connection to the Coen brothers, who, if you listen to a lot of their dialogue, is very influenced by Preston Sturges. You've got the character of Barton Fink, who's almost like this type of character, right? Who's a director, who's a writer in Hollywood, and he's trying to create a serious script. And the message there is similar, that life is different from your serious script, that your serious script is a bit pretentious. And this movie's anything but pretentious. It's, if anything, it risks, going too lowbrow, but it never does. I mean, if you like a movie like The Lady Eve, All Hail the Conquering Hero, movies like that, you will love Sullivan's Travels. In fact, it's a 7.9 on IMDb, which is pretty high. That might make it Preston Sturges' highest rated film. In fact, I would be surprised if it wasn't. 7.6. Sullivan's Travel is 7.9. Lady Eve 7.7. So yeah, this is his highest rated movie.